JJ Redick, he's putting the microphone down. Is the podcast over? Like, is there going to be one last pod before JJ takes over as the head coach in LA? Or what? I mean, I guess the man with the answers is the guy we got on the line now from the LA Times. Here's Dan Woike. How you doing, Dan?
I wish I had better podcast answers for you. I wonder if this is we could do like a farewell. I think like they pull off the one time, like sort of like, go from the red wine to like maybe a nice champagne or something like that, a classy white, and really tie a bow on this. I think we should talk about the podcast. You guys want to talk about the podcast?
Yes, please. What do you make of that? Yes, go ahead.
I've never covered a coaching search where there's been more podcast talk because you had the LeBron JJ podcast, obviously, right? Linking things. Part of the Dan Hurley candidacy always came with like the note that LeBron James is a big fan of his, right? Because LeBron James tweeted what a genius Dan Hurley was. Well, that was because Dan Hurley was on the JJ Redick podcast talking about offenses and stuff like that. And that was LeBron quote tweeting that. Here's what I can tell you guys. LeBron James and JJ Redick were not close friends prior to this podcast. Like, they don't have 20 years of relationship outside of just being guys who played in the NBA at the same time. They obviously connected. You can watch the pod, you can see them, and I think if I were the Lakers, you'd be foolish to ignore that. LeBron James very strategically, though, is taking a real step back when it comes to things like coaching. That's just like his power is so much more implied at this stage than it is like actually put into, hey, go hire the guy I have a podcast with. It's more so the Lakers looking at the situation and saying, we know this guy can talk to LeBron James. We've got, 9 episodes at 45 minutes a pop showing it. What
is this JJ Redick getting into with LeBron at his age? Like, I like this guy. He claims to know a lot, which he does, and you got to have that attitude going into it. But you got LeBron at his age, and I just don't know what he's getting into. That's a dangerous game and a dangerous train he's hopping on right now.
Well, the good news for him, right, is that if he's terrible at it, he will have fallback options. Right, like this isn't a make or break necessarily for JJ Redick in that way. It is a challenge,
of course not. Yeah.
And I think he's a guy who embraces challenges. Right, like that is a big part of who he is as a person. So before I cover the Lakers, I covered the Clippers in Los Angeles. Like I've seen JJ Redick, I've gotten to know JJ Redick. He's a meticulous worker, a perfectionist, somebody who's going to pour every bit of himself into this job. Right, like, and I think the Lakers are interested in that. But you're right. It is a strange time in their organization as they try to do what's almost impossible, which is care about today in a meaningful way while planning for tomorrow. It's just really hard to do. And that's sort of the situation they are in with a great player at 40 years old in LeBron James.
How tough will that market be on a rookie head coach? Like, is there going to be a little bit of a soft landing? Is there going to be an understanding that he's got to take his lumps along the way, or is he getting thrown right into the fire with that market?
Well, I mean, my colleague Bill Plaschke has already considered this a total failure and lunacy in his written stuff, and it's like
just as we suspected.
I don't think the press release has gone out yet. So there's that.
But what's his reasoning though? What's he saying?
No experience, is the big thing. And no experience and sort of the LeBron factor, which at least optically is an issue. I think it's more optics than it is reality based on my reporting. But, I think it looks bad. And but yeah, I mean, look, Laker fans have short memories, right? Like this is not a group of people that beloved LeBron James for a very long time. And the sort of LeBron-Kobe rivalries picked very clearly who they thought the best player was, who they thought the MVP should have been, all of that stuff, who they thought was the guy who left his team to go chase rings somewhere else in Miami. Kobe never had to do that. He won them here. And then he becomes a Laker. And look, he's not beloved the same way that Kobe Bryant is, but it's certainly not it's not the type of vitriol that he was facing earlier in his career as a visitor. Like, if you're on their side, they'll roll with you. I think, though, there's not a lot of patience to the greater point when it comes to the Lakers, right? Like, it's hard to sell Laker fans on a 4-year process or a 3-year process, especially after the Boston Celtics just won a title. Fans here want retribution, and they want it fast, and it's going to be hard. But I will say it would have been hard no matter who they hired, to be totally honest. It's going to be a really hard job.
Right. We're Dan Woike of the LA Times, JJ Redick, the new head coach of the LA Lakers. And I appreciate, Bill Plaschke having that approach, because I do think if this was, JJ Redick or anyone in his situation, podcast with a player, blah, 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 going to a smaller market, the bigger market media would just torch it, say that's rinky-dink, it's amateur hour, it's ridiculous. And yet, because it's the Lakers, the biggest brand in the business, because it's LeBron, the biggest brand in the business, there's a part of, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, this is different, or at least I got to put some respect on it, or it feels that way. I got to let it play out. Yet, I don't know what success looks like. Like you just mentioned, the Lakers and fans, they want a championship. That goes without saying. But again, whoever gets hired in Detroit is going to say we're trying to win a championship. Every team's going to say that in every sport. What does success look like in the next 12 months for you, for JJ Redick and the Lakers?
I mean that's a hell of a question. I mean, I think 2 years ago it was an Eastern Conference a trip to the Western Conference Finals, right? Mm-hmm. And an in-season tournament win, and those guys lost. Those guys lost their jobs. Frank Vogel won a championship, and he lost his job.
Right.
2 years later. So, like, what does success look like in the Lakers? I probably, like, if we can make it through, without I'm sorry, my son just broke into the room. If we can make it through the next, it's adorable, guys, I will tell you. If that's me, that's me. Hey, you want to
Does he have any JJ Redick takes?
Hey,
buddy. Good to see you, pal.
No, but I think he didn't like that. I think
sorry.
Sorry. No, it's all right. Guys, I've tried to teach him to be nice to Canadians. He watched a little bit of the Kendrick thing yesterday, so I think he's got an angry blood.
Yeah, that's causing a stir up here, man. Get DeMar off the stage.
Yeah. All-time Raptors leading scorer. What a shot.
Yeah.
But I think on the success front, competitive basketball is really what matters, right? Like, I mean, every team wants to win titles. The Lakers are judged by whether or not they win titles. I take a bigger picture approach in my general. Play meaningful basketball. You have LeBron James. You got to play important games,
right?
And hopefully you win them, right? But like, your games can't mean nothing. In Frank Vogel's last season with the Lakers, Russell Westbrook's first, those games meant nothing at the end of the year. It was a total disaster. The first 3 months of Darvin Ham's tenure with the Lakers, those games meant nothing. And then they got to the Western Conference Finals and feeling the juice in the arena. And like, I know the tournament was the whatever, but like, those games had feeling and meaning. And, those games against Denver in the playoffs had feeling and meaning. And I think you just got to be in the mix. And if you're, and that to me if the Lakers are in the mix, JJ Redick has done a good job.